Welcome, everyone, to Online for Authors. I'm Carole O'Neill, and my guest today is Tina Hogan Grant. Welcome, Tina.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Tina's already won a Gold Medal Award for Best Fiction Adventure in 2020 and another Best Fiction Adventure Award for Reunion in 2021. But today we're here to talk about book one of her secret series called Secrets Told. Tina, why don't you give our audience the author's version of the TV guide description, better known to authors as the elevator pitch about Secrets Told?
Okay, Secrets Told is a book about self-discovery. Patricia Levenick, the protagonist, is a successful attorney in New York. In fact, she's one of the best on the East Coast. She has two beautiful daughters, Savannah and Jewel, and an ex-husband named Bryce, and you will discover why they are now divorced in the book. So I'm not giving that away. But she receives a letter that takes her back to her past. And it's a past that she has not spoken to anyone, not even her daughters or Bryce. Now, her and Bryce still have a relationship because of their daughters. He was doing a favor for Patricia and came across this letter. Bryce is now demanding answers. He feels that his daughters and himself should know about the history, about Patricia's history. So this takes her on a journey of self-discovery. The question is, will she be able to return to her prestigious life in New York, or will everything be forever changed?
Yeah, because she has quite the life in New York. As I mentioned in my review, when I started reading Secrets Told, I was sure I was reading about a woman who was just like Miranda Priestly from The Devil Wears Prada. I was convinced that's what this was going to be about. But then you surprised me with that twist, that letter that Patricia received that completely shook her. Tell us a little bit about the letter.
Well, I don't want to give too much away.
Right.
The letter is unexpected. As I mentioned, she is an attorney in New York, very successful. But this letter is in regards to, how can I put this? She thought it was from a client. I don't want to give too much away of the letter. Right. But she thought it was from a client. It's from Alaska. She has no clients in Alaska. So, of course, she was surprised why she received this letter from Alaska. I don't want to say the contents of the letter, but it does mention a person from her past that she just doesn't even know anymore.
Right. And it shocks her completely. She never expected this at all.
And the first person she turns to is her aunt. This is a person that has been her role model throughout her life. And this is who she turns to when she receives the letter. And again, her aunt, and I'm terrible. I wrote this book. And for the life of me, I can't think of the aunt's name. It's just like, whoosh.
Oh, yeah, right. I can't either. I mean, I can think of Bryce and, yeah.
What is her name? I don't have the book.
Yeah, and Savannah and Jewel. I can think of all those, but I can't think.
The aunt. What is the aunt's name? Anyways, the aunt. There's only one aunt. So it's
right. Right. We're not crazy about her. That's probably why we didn't remember her name.
Yeah, but she is shocked, too, by the news. So, and then, of course, you discover more about this aunt. But yeah, it's a shocking revelation for Patricia. But immediately what installs in her is panic because she never thought her past would catch up to her. It's been over 20 years. So out of the blue, she receives this letter and all of a sudden she has to confront it. And she believes that it will only be herself that has to confront it and hide it from everybody else. So her main objective when she receives this letter is to make sure no one else knows about this letter.
Right. And not only that, but what really interested me was how likable her husband was. I mean, even though they were divorced, he had not remarried, and he went to Connecticut, bought this property, this dairy farm, brought the girls there once a month, but seemed to be still very close with Patricia.
He was. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
he is a brilliant father, I think.
Yeah.
Him and Patricia are on the opposite sides when raising the girls. And it was one of the constant battles when it came to raising the girls. But because Patricia had them all month, except for a weekend when Bryce had them, she had more control, which irritated Bryce because the way he wanted his girls to be raised was, to him, more of a normal lifestyle that most people will relate to. You know, being outside, being with nature, fishing, being with the ducks, being with the horses. Patricia, on the other hand, upscale New York, Upper East End, she was into what society expected of her and of her daughters. And
Right.
that was a big conflict between her and Bryce. When I started writing the book, I don't plot my books at all. I let the characters talk to me. That's one of the big things when I write my books. And it's why I enjoy writing so much. It's because I have no idea where the story's going. The characters let me know.
So you're a pantster. You're not a plotter.
I'm a pantster big time. I tried to plot, didn't work out. I got into an argument with my characters and they won. But when I started writing Secrets Told, Patricia is not a very likable person in the beginning.
Right.
And my thought was, how are my readers going to react? Because to be honest, she is horrible. She's stuck up. She's rude. She's sarcastic. Not sarcastic. What's the word I'm thinking of? Just full of herself. And she looks down at people. So my concern was that readers are going to start reading this and go, my God, what a bitch. Who is this person? And I actually asked the readers in my group, would you continue to read a book if the protagonist you don't like in the beginning? And they all said yes. They all said yes because they want to see where it goes, why she is who she is. So, of course, I continued to write the book. When Bryce came into the picture, I, agree with what you said. He's very lovable, very, very low key. And
he was working in New York before, wasn't he? He was also in that fast lane when they met.
Yeah, he was. And something happened in his career that just woke him up. Just woke him up. And that's when his life changed.
What do you think? I know you said, Patricia kind of guided you, that you were a pantster. Why do you think Patricia agreed to take Bryce and the girls to Alaska with her to find out about this letter, this mysterious letter? Why do you think she agreed if she was, it was like, I guess if I were plotting it, I don't know that I would have been able to do that. That's pretty clever.
I don't think she honestly had a choice because Bryce had threatened, what would we call it a threat? Well, we'll call it a threat. He had threatened to tell his daughters about everything. Now, did she want to be reflected as the mother, that, hid all of this and someone else told the daughters about it? Or should she be the one to actually sit down with her daughters and tell them from her and from her heart? And when Bryce put it that way, like, we're either going, I'm just going to tell the daughters myself. And then you can figure out the mess. She kind of was put on the spot, like, which way do you want this to go? And if I was Patricia, I'd go to Alaska. I wouldn't want anyone else telling my story.
Right.
It's to come from me. And I admire Patricia for taking that course because, like I said, I listened to my characters and it could have gone the other way. And if it had gone the other way, how would her daughters have reacted? And that was her fear. So she was driven by fear to go along with this trip that in the beginning she was totally against. But I think the way that Bryce put her on the spot, she had no choice.
Well, and not only that, but Bryce had the youngest daughter, Jewel. He had her fishing and at his place in Connecticut, and then he even bought a horse for Savannah.
Mm-hmm.
So he kind of knew that they would be interested in what was going on in Alaska, even though she had them in a very different lane. I mean, she had them dancing lessons or piano lessons or
ballet classes, violin classes, all that stuff.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That part of the book when they got to Alaska was so relaxing and informative. And that part of your book was very familiar to you because after you moved to the States, you actually became a commercial fisherwoman, right?
I did. And I absolutely loved it. I was a lobster fisherwoman for 10 years. In fact, there was only 2 of us in the whole state of California. two women that actually commercial fished. I was the only one in Southern California. But my now husband got me into it. When I met him back in the day, he was commercial fishing for lobsters, and I was just fascinated by what he did.
So you didn't go to be a commercial fisherman. You met him, and then
I met him.
I wondered how you got that.
Into it. We started dating, and he told me what he did, and I was at the time a waitress in Pasadena. And I told myself, how often do you meet a commercial fisherman, here in Pasadena? So I was from the beginning just fascinated by what he did for a living, and he took me out of the boat. And after that, I just wanted to know everything about this fishery. I was just fascinated by it all. And then we got a second boat, and I fished with him for 10 years, and we each drove our own boat, pulled our own traps, and met in the middle. I loved it. I did. And I still miss it today. I still do miss being out.
Do you really? Do you ever get out fishing?
We have a couple of boats now, but we only do sport fishing. We don't do commercial fishing. But my son is an avid fisherman. He is brought up on fishing boats. He lived on a fishing boat with us for 6 or 7 years before we got the house. But I just loved just being out on the ocean. We would be out there 7 days at a time before we would come back in with our catch. And just the solitude of the ocean, and every day was an adventure. You just never know what the ocean was going to bring you.
Yeah.
And we had challenges, we had laughs, and the fishery that we belonged to out at the islands, we're just like one big happy family. We all watched out for each other. We would cook at the back of our boats at nighttime, and it's just a camaraderie that I miss. But I don't miss the dangers. I don't miss the grueling work, but I do miss being out on the ocean every single day.
Now you have children. Would you let them go out and do that kind of work now?
Oh yeah. Mark, my son, like I said, he fishes sport fishing as much as he can. And he went commercial fishing with us in his younger days, fell in love with it. And he's always wanted to go to Alaska and be a deckhand. It's something he always wanted to do, but now, I would have let him if he wanted to go. It's his life. He wants to take the path he wants to choose. It is a dangerous occupation, one of the most dangerous. But he spent his life on boats. He knows the dangers. He knows what to look out for. He's taken boating courses, safety courses. I trust him and his knowledge when it comes to being on boats. But now he has two sons. One's 12, one's 9. How can you leave for 6 months at a time, your family, and go to Alaska and be a deckhand? Yeah.
I tried to place your book in a category. I thought women's contemporary novels, romantic suspense. Where would you say they belong?
I would say women's family fiction is probably one of the top ones, and then another one that Amazon has listed it in is a women's divorce.
Women's
I didn't even know that category listed. But Amazon will sometimes you'll pick your categories when you list your book. I'm self-published.
Right.
Amazon will designate it to a category that they have that I might not have chosen. They actually listed it in women's divorce, which I thought was very fitting.
Now, do you write at any particular time of the day, or do you write every single day? How do you write your books?
I try to write every day. I'm very disciplined because my first book, Reckless Beginnings, my debut that came out in 2018, that took forever to write. It took forever. I mean, it was 10 years in the thought process and another 2 to 3 years to write. And that's when I started taking my writing seriously. And I told myself, I can't take this long to write my next book. My readers are going to hate me. So now I discipline myself Monday through Friday to write 1,000 words a day. I have to write at least 1,000 words a day. It doesn't matter if I write 200 in the morning, 300 in the afternoon. The other 500 has to get written before I go to bed. It doesn't matter when I write them, but my day is not over till I write those 1,000 words. And for me, breaking it up is very easy. Like this morning, I actually sat down and I wrote 700 words. So before I go to bed tonight, I have to at least write 300. I mean, a lot of times I'll go over that 1,000, but that is my base.
Yeah.
And then Saturday and Sunday is optional. If I feel like writing, I've got nothing going on, I might sit down and write a few hundred words. But keeping it to 1,000 words a day. And sometimes I don't reach that goal. And what I have to learn is not to be so hard on myself. Because sometimes I might get to 800 and I'm so tired, I got to go to bed. And then I get angry. I go to bed angry because I'm short 200 words. And that's something I really have to step back and just not be so hard on myself. And that does happen sometimes. Not too often, but it does.
Yeah, some people say I need to go away and I need to sit down, by myself for 4 days at a cabin in the woods and I can write a first draft. I think those are rare people who can do that. I think most people like you try to do it so much a day, and then and sometimes just sitting down and being there gives you more inspiration than you expected before you went into the room. But,
exactly.
I don't know. I'm not sure I could do. I've often thought it would be nice to go to a cabin and spend a week and write a whole first draft. I'm not sure I could do that. I don't know. Could you?
Well, I live in the mountains in a cabin, so I'm there.
So you're already there. So
yeah. My issue is I'm a pantster, and my characters talk to me. So if they're not talking to me, I'm not writing. Yeah. And sometimes in the morning, instantly I'll hear one of them in my head, and I will sit down, have my coffee, and listen. And then I might go the whole day and no one's talking to me. So I won't fight it. If I've only written those 200 words and there's nothing more to write, then I'm done. Yeah, and then I might be doing around the house something, whatever it be, laundry, dishes. All of a sudden I hear voices again. It sounds crazy. Okay, I'm going to get these done. I'm going to go write. And that's kind of how my writing practice works is if they're not talking to me, I can't write because I'm telling their stories and I can't make it up. So I'm very adamant about if I don't hear anything, then I'm not going to sit here and try and make things up because to me the story doesn't sound real because it's coming from my head and not my characters. So the one book I tried was Eve in the Stabella series is book 2, and I tried to direct that story. I tried to plot it and everything and it tried to take it one way. The book ended up going in a totally opposite direction, something I never saw, and it was so much better. And it's because I finally caved in and said, fine, let me know when I need to write.
You've had to do it. See, I just did I'm from a news background. So everything I've ever written was nonfiction and it was absolutely plotted. You know, whether I wrote a documentary or whether I was doing a news story so the first books that I wrote, I did cold case mysteries and they all came from actual stories that I covered as a producer at a TV station. And so they were definitely plotted. And I even knew, one took place in Wales. And so I even knew what happened next and what happened next. I think the first time that it was during the pandemic was the first time that I just kind of let myself go because I wasn't sure what the ending should be. It was not a story I knew. It was a story I was trying to make up. And I never wrote fiction. And so it made me crazy. And then one day I just sat down and it was the very first story. So I write cozy mysteries now, but I have a little bit of an idea, but I went from being a plotter to a pantser without even knowing it. And it is quite interesting. You're right. You don't know where you're going to go.
You really don't know. And the characters just surprise me all the time. They tell me what they like to drink. They tell me what they like to drive. And then out of the blue, something happened, 15 years ago that tells me why they act the way they do today. And I love peeling away the layers of an onion when it comes to my characters. Like, why is so-and-so stuck up? Or why is so-and-so introverted? Or why is she very quiet? Why doesn't she date much? And eventually it comes out when the characters tell me more about themselves. And I just love how it all comes together. And to me, as I'm writing, I'm like, this doesn't make sense. But I'll continue to write. And when I write also, I don't go back. Or you do what works for you, but some writers would go back, reread what they wrote, edit it. I will not. I will just write. And by the time I get done, sometimes the book will take me, 4 to 6 months to write the first draft. So when I finished with the first draft at 4 or 5 months, I had not read chapter 1 in 6 months. And I won't read it again until I'm finished.
Till you complete it. That's
So
interesting. That's very interesting.
If I start going back, I'll start changing stuff. I'll start questioning stuff. I would, I just do all kinds of changes, and then I'm just lost.
So you leave it completely until you finish.
Leave it completely. And then what I do after I finish the first draft, I would then reread it without making any corrections. Just reread the whole thing, bring all the story back into my head from day one, and see how it unfolds. And then I'll make little notes like, well, there's a gap here, or, something happened here, but you didn't answer it here. And I just make little notes of when I'm reading the book. And then I go back again, and then I start cleaning it up, filling it in where there's gaps, stuff like that. And when I do the fillings, that's more out of my head than the character's head.
And then do you use beta readers, or do you use an editor, or how do you
complete? I love my editor. I have ARC readers. I don't use beta readers. This is my own personal thing for me. When it comes to my stories, if I start getting feedback from other people, whether it be 3 people, 5 people, 10 people, I feel like there's just too many cooks in the pot. And you're going to start questioning my thoughts on the story. And, if I'm asking one person's opinion about, whether it be a location, a name, a plot, that's just her one opinion. There's millions of people in the world, and I don't want to have my thoughts on the book start having doubts because of people that have doubts about it. So for me, I don't look for feedback from a beta group, but the ARC readers. I love my ARC readers. I have an ARC group. They are sent the book after my editor has gone through the first edits.
Right.
No, that is still going through edits. I ask them not to take away any edits away from the story. Just focus on the story, the plot, the characters, the character building, blah, 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 blah. And I like them because they also post reviews before the book is published on Amazon. They can publish reviews on Goodreads, Barnes & Noble, Book Club.
Right.
That's where the art come in. And my editor, I love her. She's done most of my books, and we have a great working communication.
Well, I have to say that our audience by now is sure that you are not originally from California. Tell us where you grew up.
I am actually from a small little town called Ilkley, but I call it Ilkley. And it is a small town in England. I've been coming to the States ever since I was 12 years old. Wow. My father moved out here after my parents divorced. He was also an author. But I had to finish all my schooling in England. He would not allow me to move to the States with him. So I had to complete all my schooling in England. And then a couple of years later, I followed him and moved to the States.
Interesting. Now, if anybody is interested in learning more about Secrets Told, if you want to go over to log on to Facebook and go to Novels and Latte, you might even be lucky enough to win a digital copy of Tina's book from that book club. Tina, tell me a little bit about your other series. I know that you did the Sabella series and the Tammy Mellows series.
Yeah,
tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, the Tammy Mellows trilogy is based on my life. I am Tammy Mellows, and that's my debut novel, which Reckless Beginnings. And my idea was just to write this one book. I had this strong message, not necessarily for women, but all, mothers, fathers, daughters, partners, whatever. Everyone could relate. But I had so much to say, it ended up being a trilogy. But it begins with when I was in my young 20s, I found my life being dictated by an addict. That's pretty much what the basis of the story is. We all make foolish mistakes. We question why we allow it to happen. But back in the day, this was in the 90s, there was only bookstores. There was no online ebooks or anything like that, or the internet. And I never used, but this addict was controlling my life. And I needed to find answers from other people that were going through this situation. Go to a bookstore, I couldn't find anything. All I found were books to help the addict, how to clean up, how to get your life back on track, but nothing for the person that was in that lifestyle. Wow. And I had his child. So I also had the concerns of my young son. So that's when I knew I had to write this book. And I had to reach out to probably mostly women back then on how I coped and how I turned my life around. And that is what Reckless Beginnings is about. And it is about my story, but I wrote it in third person because I didn't want it to just be about my story. This is a story for everyone that is in that situation. So that is Reckless Beginnings. And then it continued on with Better Endings. And each one has a strong message. That one is about surviving that relationship and the courage it took to change my life. And to the message is, you don't have to settle. No one has to settle. We all have choices. And in Better Endings, book 2, that is when I began my commercial fishing career. And I found myself feeling intimidated, beginning a career in commercial fishing that is dominated by men. So this is just overcoming those fears because I was the only woman on the fleet. So
what was that like?
It was at first very intimidating, but what woke me up is when one of the fellow fishermen said, well, she's not going to last the season. That turned my attitude around. I'm like, I'm going to show you. So he kind of, strengthened me by saying that. And it's about how I got started in commercial fishing and the challenges I faced. And also my editor said it's the sweetest love story because it's where me and my husband met. So it's also a love story within the fishery on the Pacific Ocean. And then the Reunions, book 3, to sum it up real quick, is all about family. My family is scattered. I came to the States. My mother is in England. My father's over here. My sister's over here. And we became estranged. And it basically, I quote Benjamin Franklin in the front, do not put off today. Do not put off tomorrow what you can do today. And it focuses on the consequences of procrastination. My sisters and I have been estranged for 30 years.
Wow.
A long, long time. My mother, Rose, in the book, her name is Rose, she becomes very ill with dementia. And my quest in the book as Tammy Mellows is to try and get all of our daughters together in the same room. And the question is, will time be on our side? And I'm not going to say what happens in the book, of course.
Of course not.
The reunions, not the reunion, because there is more than one reunion. But basically, it's the 3 sisters racing against time to try and make my mother's last wish come true.
It sounds fascinating.
Very emotional book.
I'll bet. That was hard to write.
I cried during that book. When I wrote it, I had tears.
Yeah, I'm sure that would be hard to write. I did write a memoir once that involved my mother, and it is difficult. It's therapy, I guess you could say, but it is difficult when you get through it. So what are you working on now?
I'm working real quick, the Sabella series. I forgot about that one. The Sabella series is romantic suspense. It is 8 books. It is completed, so there's no more waiting for the next book. It's romantic suspense with some steam. But I always tell people, if you like the TV show Friends, then you'll like the Sabella series because it's pretty much about 6 best friends that support each other, and it focuses on the power of friendship through the ups and downs and finding that forever love. And you'll laugh in places, cry in some places, and be shocked in others.
And these are all titled with first names, am I correct?
The beginning is book 1 is Slater, book 2 is Steve, Claire, Jill, then all of us, because they also come together for an event in that book. And then I'm forgetting my titles. The one after that is forgotten. There's 2 more books. Dream Big is another one. That's the last book in the series. And Open Arms is another one. So there we go. Yeah. So I'm sorry, what was the question you had? That right now?
That's another series.
Yeah.
So
what am I working on now? That's what you asked me.
Yeah, what are you working on now?
Right now I'm working on book 2 of the Secret series. And with these, I call it a series because the theme is all about secrets.
Right.
But every single book is a standalone within the series. Right. The characters do not continue on. Patricia's not in this book. They're all brand new characters. But
will we find some of the characters in book 1 in book 2 or nothing?
Nothing.
It's
okay. The theme is a secret. One of the characters in the books holds a shocking or surprising secret. So that's why I call it the secret.
Yeah.
And book 2, I just started it about a month ago now that Secrets Told is out there. I don't have a title when I start a book. It always comes to me when I'm writing a book. Sometimes it's in the middle, sometimes to the end. But this book, it came right away. So I was quite surprised. And this one's going to be called A Daughter's Secret. And the protagonist is called Molly. Her name is Molly. I'm just getting to know Molly. I think I'm on chapter 11 right now. And Molly is a very lonely woman, very lonely woman. After a tragedy, she is left with no family.
Oh, wow.
She is a daughter. She holds a secret. And this is about her journey of accepting, of course, the loss of her family, but also realizing that she now has to follow the life she was supposed to live. She feels that she was denied her true life. Now she is on that journey to go find it. That's all I know right now.
Wow. Well, I look forward to reading that. That sounds very interesting.
Like I said, I'm on chapter 11. This is what Molly's told me so far. She does have a best friend, Stacy, that I'm getting to know right now. They live in apartment buildings. They met in the parking lot when they're both moving in together on the same day, and a friendship was struck. So that is where I'm at with the book right now. But this is what I'm discovering with Molly.
Well, I wish you luck with the rest of it. How can people get in touch with you or find out more about what you're doing? Do you have a website you'd like to tell us about, or
I do. I have a website. I have a website, TinaHoganGrant.com. Has all my latest releases. Everything you want to know about me is on there. And also you can buy signed copies of my books on the site. I also have a Facebook group. That's where you're going to find me every night. That is what I call my base. I have 4,700 members in my Facebook group. It's called Read More Books. And I don't go in there during the day because then my day's gone. I will start talking to members. I will start, mingling. And my group members know this. I am only in there in the evening and I comment. I say hi, blah, blah, blah. I have an author page on Facebook, Tina Hogan Grant author. And then I do have Instagram accounts under the same name, Tina Hogan Grant. And but you won't find me on there as much as you will as in my Facebook group. If you really want to chit chat with me, come on in at nighttime. I'm usually in there.
That's great. So we'll find you in Facebook. Yep. Well, listen, it's been really interesting talking with you. I've enjoyed it, and I look forward to reading the next things you write. I want to see what happens next. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character-driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch. Tune in next Tuesday for another podcast episode.